Welcome back into the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast, week number 8, segment number 2 with our two-hole hitter, Matt Josephs from ESPN Richmond at Mid-Major Matt on Twitter. Matt, welcome on in, bud. How you feeling?
Doing well, Drew. Another best bet victory, much like we picked on UMass 2 weeks ago. We picked on Akron last week. The offense didn't show up, and we are now 4-3 in the best bets so far this season.
There you go. We'll take it, man. Positive here, giving it out for free. Every game on the board. Talking about UMass, I know that's not part of our slate here, but Buffalo at UMass, that was one I had circled. Are you going to lay the number with Buffalo?
I can't lay that. I mean, as a guy who has the win total over for Buffalo, obviously I hope they win because I need the win. But I don't know if their offense is explosive enough to lay that kind of number. I'm not saying I would take UMass, but Buffalo's offense isn't good enough for me to lay that on the road, I think.
Yeah, I know. Understandable for sure. It was just one I had circled to keep going against the Minutemen. But guys, if you're new to Every Game on the Board, we go down in rotation order, talking every single game on the FBS college football board. This is segment number 2. We did segment number 1 with Jeff Nadeau. We got Robbie Vino coming up shortly. Wherever you're downloading your podcast at, Every Game on the Board is where you can get every segment. All right, we got first game up for this segment, 349-350, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific kick, Georgia Tech and Duke. A good one here in the ACC, Matt. You cover the ACC conference very closely, and we are seeing Duke. This number surprised me. -1.5 as the home favorite, 60.5 being the total. We get the Yellow Jackets on the road in Durham. What are we thinking, Georgia Tech and Duke, to start off the segment?
Yeah, I feel like this is the trend that we talk about a lot in college football, the unranked home team as a favorite against a ranked team, and how, everybody just kind of jumps to the road team in this situation. But obviously, Duke with an extra week to prepare for this one, Georgia Tech coming off the win over Virginia Tech. Obviously, as a guy with the over 6.5 for Duke and the win total, I would love for them to get the win here. And I think the extra week will help. I feel like this is a Duke team, the last couple of games that have played like the Duke team that I thought we were going to get in the preseason. Everybody was selling them when they lost to Tulane, when they lost to Illinois. And yeah, I was a little disappointed. But then the Syracuse win, the other win that they got against NC State, we saw the great offense that they had. And we've seen flashes of the defense that they have. And I think, look, you shut down Hayden King, running and throwing. I think you can win this game. Georgia Tech's defense is good. It's not great. It's exploitable. So I'm going to take Duke with 2 weeks, a fresher team in this situation at home. I lean to the Blue Devils here.
Matt, we got next one up, heading to the Big Ten, Michigan State and Indiana, 3:30 Eastern here. It is the Hoosiers, -27 and a hook at home, 52.5 being the total. I know you've had your experiences here with Kirk Cignetti. Is he one to cover, a 4-touchdown spread?
Yeah, Kurt Cignetti is definitely a guy who knows the spread and definitely would want to cover in this situation. Something we'll talk about a lot with some of the Midwest teams, rain and wind in this game. Timing could be different. We might see it in the beginning of the game or later in the game. It doesn't look like it's going to be full coverage, but that's something we're going to talk about a lot with some of these games towards the Midwest and things like that. But Michigan State, the first thing you want to look at here, Aiden Childs, their quarterback, has been limited so far this week in practice. Without him, I don't know how good the backup is. Their offense already isn't very good. They didn't play well in that home game against UCLA. The defense could get a couple of guys back. So this one's a very important one to watch the participation report with regards to Sparty here. Plus, next week is Michigan. Now, I did notice that Michigan State has covered 4 straight years the game before Michigan. So they're 4-0 ATS the game before. So that's something to look at here. But look, Indiana's really good. Indiana's offense should have no issues here. I would watch the weather forecast, though, as we get closer for the timing of when the rain and the wind start, because that might affect if maybe you want to play Indiana in the first half or in the second half, depending upon when the weather comes.
We get Texas State and Marshall up next. We are seeing the Bobcats at Texas State as a road favorite. -2.5 at most shops. There is -3 available, 67 being the total. High total here, not the highest on the board, but a high one, flirting with 70. What are we thinking, Texas State and Marshall?
So I don't know where Texas State's head's at. I mean, we talked about last week, Texas State under G.J. Kinney the last couple Octobers has been miserable. And last week they had a win as pretty much ready to go against Troy, and then some things happen and they lose in overtime. So I don't know where this Texas State's confidence is at right now. Marshall last week with a very convincing win over ODU. They forced 5 turnovers in that game. I don't think Marshall is as good as they played last week, But I also don't know where Texas State's confidence is at concerning their October issues. They are playing JMU in 10 days after this one because they'll play JMU on October 28th, which is a Tuesday night. I don't really have a lean in this game because I don't trust Marshall to be as good as they were last week, but I certainly can't take Texas State on the road considering how bad they've been in Octobers the past couple of years.
Makes sense, Matt, as we got a 3:00 Eastern kick up next in Monroe, Louisiana. It is UL Monroe, the Warhawks, hosting the Troy Trojans. We are seeing Troy -6 as the road favorite, 45 and a hook being the total.
Yeah, so last week, I mean, we just talked about the other side. Troy, by the end of the game, had one healthy offensive lineman. 4 of their other offensive linemen left the game with cramping. And so they had one starter left at the end. Tucker Kilcrease, I had to make sure to say that name right. He's been smoking hot lately for this offense. And remember, the first game he came in, he was terrible. And so ever since then, he's been awesome. So this offense is rolling right now, and they're going up against a ULM team that scored 15 points the last 2 weeks. I think ULM's defense can keep them in this game. It's going to be hot. Looks like it's going to be temperatures in the 90s for this game. So heat could be an issue once again for Troy. Certainly with the cramps, we had something we'd have to watch as this game goes along. Slight lean to ULM in this situation, but probably the under is the best way to go in this one because I think ULM's defense is going to slow down Troy, and ULM's offense has been brutal lately.
Matt, let's talk your alma mater here. Syracuse hosting Pittsburgh. We are seeing the Panthers -10 and a hook at most shops as the road favorite, 55 being the total. Pitt at Syracuse ACC matchup.
I mean, it's so sad to see Syracuse this much of an underdog at home, but Ricky Collins has not been a good quarterback so far for us, and he's still the number one quarterback, which is a little frustrating. They are coming off the bye week, so maybe with 2 weeks of prep time for this, they can play a little bit better. My concern is as Syracuse starts playing worse and worse, the home field advantage will disappear. Syracuse fans at times, and I'm one of them, don't show up as much towards the end of the season, especially for bad seasons, so I wonder how much of a home field advantage they have. My question for Pittsburgh is you're coming off the win at Florida State, highly intense atmosphere, everything is tough, and now you're heading to Syracuse where it won't be that case. I would never tell anybody to lay this many points with Pittsburgh on the road. I don't know if I feel comfortable taking the points with Syracuse at home. That's probably the place I would lean here, but I've been very frustrated with this offense with Ricky Collins under center.
So a little jab at the Syracuse fan base. Is that just a little fair weatherness, or is that kind of all the time they're not showing up?
I think that's with every fan base. I think it's with a lot of fan bases. Like if your team starts being bad, you're in college and it's a Saturday, you don't want to spend 3 hours at a football game. You'd rather be, drinking adult beverages or doing whatever college kids do on Saturdays, watching other college football. So like, I'm not just singling out Syracuse here, but I've noticed, as it's gone along, the crowds don't get as good. Somewhat of a rivalry, Syracuse and Pittsburgh, but it's not something that's going to bring people to the stand. So, look, I hope Syracuse plays well. I hope the fans show up, and I hope Ricky Collins improves. But brutal to see that we're double-digit underdogs at home to Pitt.
Definitely surprising in the number as we got Akron and Ball State up next, a couple MACtion games midday Saturday. It is 41 and a half being the total, -1. That's Ball State as the home favorite hosting the Zips.
So I one of my losses last week, I had Ball State plus the points. Obviously, I was way off there. There was 9.5. They lost 42-0. And I know when these things we're not supposed to admit when we're wrong. I am wrong occasionally. It happens. So we were wrong on that. This one is going to have a lot of rain and wind too. And I think the rain and the wind will help Ball State a little bit more because they have the better running game than Akron does. Akron has the better passing game with Finley at quarterback, but if it's raining and windy, you're not going to be able to use that as much to your advantage. So I kind of lean to Ball State a little bit. Now, I don't think their defense is good enough that we go back to the Akron team total under here. Although I think, the rainier and the windier it gets, it might help the defenses in this one. But slightly in the Ball State here, you really do have to be special, though, in terms of like really liking MACtion to want to bet this game. But I lean the Ball State here. I trust their ground game in ugly conditions more than I do Akron.
Yeah, the MAC games, the Sun Belt games, the Conference USA games, midday Saturday, it is a whole lot different than the weeknight action in terms of tickets written and eyeballs on it. You can see why they're playing the midweek action. It's probably a good marketing decision, but we'll get back here to the midday Saturday action with CMU and Bowling Green. We are seeing the Falcons of Bowling Green minus anywhere from 3.5 to 4.5 as the home favorite, 43 being the total, another low total here in action.
Yeah, and it's once again, it's another game where there's going to be rain and wind, although this one looks like it's going to be more in the second half than the first half. I really like this Central Michigan team. I think what Coach Drinkald has done there has been tremendous so far. They've run the ball in almost 69% of their plays. In the last 3 games, they've had 3 rushers and 1 wide receiver eclipse the 100-yard mark. Their quarterbacks have completed 70.7% of their passes. Had 6 touchdown passes the last 3 games. They're coming off a bye week, so they're going to be a little bit fresher than Bowling Green, coming off the rivalry win over Toledo. I wish I was getting some more points here to feel a little bit more comfortable, but I kind of like Central Michigan, especially if there is rain and wind. This is a Central Michigan team that has a coach who is at Army and has a mentality that, the uglier the game, the better. Well, the conditions are going to be really ugly, and I think Central Michigan won't mind it. So I lean to Central Michigan in this situation. It's not my favorite play. It's not a huge play. Certainly the weather will make things interesting, but Bowling Green off the rivalry victory and Central Michigan off a bye week and a team that runs the ball predominantly in ugly conditions, I slightly like the road team in this situation.
Well, the bigger bets, the more influential bets are definitely pointing that way. That game opened 6 and it's as low as 3.5. So a lot of people liking the Chippewas. Good stuff there, Matt. We'll head back to the Big Ten, Purdue and Northwestern. Northwestern off the big win, minus 3-point home favorites, 47 being the total. You've already talked about rain and wind there. Well, this one being on the lake and what I think is a pretty cool stadium. What are you thinking in this Big Ten action?
Yeah, light rain and wind. As of now, the forecast. Remember, we're doing this on Thursday. There's still 48 hours before a lot of these start times, so the weather could change. So make sure to check it out. But as of now, it looks like light rain and wind for this game. Look, I think Purdue, despite the fact they lost at Minnesota, I think Purdue is kind of a buy-on team for me. Their offense has averaged over 6 yards per carry in the last couple weeks, and that's against Illinois and Minnesota, who have 2 really good defenses. And you look at Northwestern coming off the Penn State win. Where are they right now mentally? Like, how excited were they to get the Penn State victory? Like, are they going to come home and be 100% focused for Purdue? I don't know. They are a team that does not get penalized a lot. 3rd in the nation in fewest penalties and penalty yards. So they just don't have a lot of problems. And they've only turned it over once the last 3 games. All that said, my lean is to Purdue in this situation. I don't know what Northwestern's going to be like after the win at Penn State. Purdue's somewhat of a buy on offense, at least for me. So I lean to Purdue in this situation.
We got next one up, an interesting one. LSU at Vanderbilt. Welcome to 2025 college football with Vandy laying a number, hosting LSU. It's minus 2.5 pretty much across the board. 49 being the total here as the Bayou Bengals head to Nashville to take on the Commodores.
Yeah, this is interesting because Vanderbilt's coming off the bye week, and it's going to be windy. This is, wind gusts 15, 20 miles per hour, which I think will hurt both teams a little bit because they certainly want to pass here. I mean, I kind of like Vanderbilt a little bit. Now, look, I'm not the SEC expert. Drew, you're the SEC expert, so obviously you can tell me what you think here. But based on the situation, I kind of like Vanderbilt. LSU's offense has been a little underwhelming, it feels like at times. They host Texas A&M next week. I don't know if they'd necessarily be looking ahead to that game. I kind of like Vanderbilt a little bit, although I don't love their defense, but coming off a bye week, I like the situation. What about you?
Yeah, I like Vanderbilt, but I don't love the number. So that's what it really comes down to. Not a game that I've played right now, Matt, but we'll head to the Mountain West up next. Hawaii, Colorado State. We're seeing CSU off of the win off of Fresno State. Maybe you could call it lucky getting out yardage, but they did win the game. Minus 2.5. That's Colorado State, the Rams at home. 54.5 being the total. Hawaii's won some football games, but, going off the island here can be a tough place to play. Interesting handicap, Hawaii and Colorado State here, Matt.
Well, first off, I'd love for Hawaii to win this game. Then I'd win my first win total because we have a Hawaii over 5.5 and just need one more win there. So if Hawaii wants to win this game Saturday, that'd be great because my my Twitter followers who get all my win totals would love to get the early victory. Look, it's a tight spread here. Now, it's concerning that it's going to be very cold. Looks like it's going to be about 58 degrees and windy for this game. So that's something that certainly does not play into what Hawaii does. And Colorado State, as you said, it's got to have a little bit of confidence here coming off of the Fresno State win. And Colorado State has 4 defensive starters who are out for the season, which is a little concerning here against a Hawaii offense that's pretty good. Still, I usually lean to the team against Hawaii at home, away from the islands. So my lean here would be to Colorado State, but certainly if Hawaii wants to win this game, that would be great.
For sure. And if you're looking for those season win total wins and anything else Matt is putting out, you can follow him on social media at Mid-Major Matt on Twitter. We got UNLV and Boise State up next. Broncos minus 12.5 on the blue turf, 63 being the total in this Mountain West matchup.
See, this is interesting because you would think UNLV is the second best team in the conference, if not the best team in the conference, and yet the numbers going up, which means people are taking more and more money on Boise State, which I think is interesting. Are they betting on Dan Mullen's name being out there for all these other jobs is the reason why maybe he's not focused for this game? He said all the right things. I'm staying at UNLV. I love my job here. I love everything. And then you've got Boise's head coach basically saying that the fans need to stay the whole game because apparently last week they kept leaving. Look, I like UNLV here. I think you're getting undersold here a little bit. I would almost wait potentially and see if this thing keeps going up. And maybe there's an injury we're not looking at. Anthony Colandrea seems healthy. I don't know why the money keeps coming in on Boise, but I might wait a little bit longer, see if it goes up even more and take UNLV at a higher number.
We get some late night action up next, Mountain West here. New Mexico hosting Nevada. We are seeing the Lobos minus 11 and a hook at home, 48.5 being the total. Nevada, New Mexico from Albuquerque.
These are both sell-on teams for me, sell-off teams for me. Nevada's terrible. They lost 44-10 last week. They don't do a lot right, but New Mexico is also not very good. They are tied with Air Force for the league's worst turnover deficit. They are minus 10. They're allowing opposing offenses to convert nearly 45% of their third downs. I can't trust either of these two teams. I'm certainly not going to lay 11.5 with New Mexico, but I can't ask Nevada to do anything for me, so this one's a pass.
We get Southern California next up here, 4:00 local time with UCLA hosting Maryland. The Bruins laying a number, -3, catching a little fire here under the interim head coach, 53 being the total. Tough trip here for the Terps across country, but they are catching a field goal here, Matt.
Yeah, this line seems a little trappy to me. If you think about it, you are getting a Maryland team that's blown 2 straight fourth quarter leads at home against Nebraska. And I forget who the first one was, but whoever it was, they were teams that were better than Maryland. And Maryland had a lead against both of them in the fourth quarter and then all of a sudden blew it. And so now you're heading to a suddenly hot UCLA team. When, Nico is playing tremendous football for this team. And so you wonder if UCLA is the side here. And then you look and it's only 3.5. And it feels like a trap to me. Because remember, we talked about the statistic last week, Drew. Teams in that conference that had to fly multiple time zones were 9-23 or whatever the number was. They were terrible in that sort of situation. So I like UCLA. I think UCLA is the side here, but I thought that we would get, maybe a 4.5 or a 5 in this situation. So the line seems a little trappy to me, but I think the Bruins are the better team right now.
Yeah, good point on the travel with the Big Ten teams and the ACC teams struggling with that. So that's something there with the Terps going on the road to UCLA. We get Washington and Michigan, another travel spot here, this time for the Huskies. We're seeing Michigan -6 in the Big House, 50 and a hook being the total.
So once again, travel. This is Washington going across a couple time zones, coming to Michigan. Washington won this game last year. Chance of rain and wind, so that you throw in a little bit of weather here. Michigan's such a tough team to figure out. There's games where the offense is great and the defense is great, and then there's games where neither shows up. And you could say last week was one of those. They lose to USC 31-13. You've got a Washington team that's very good at running the ball, and you've got a Michigan team that's very good at stopping the run. I lean to Washington. in this situation. But the problem is, like, Michigan could go out and win this game 42-10, or they could lose this game 21-17. Like, I don't know what we're getting from Michigan on a week-to-week basis, but I do know that I really like this Washington offense. I will certainly be watching the weather as we get closer, because I think clearer weather will benefit Washington here. But I kind of like the Huskies. I think their quarterback is better. I think their running back is better. I think Denzel Boston is better than any wide receiver Michigan has. So, like, I kind of lean to Washington here, but I want to wait till closer to make sure the weather is what I want.
Sure. And yeah, catching as high as +6 there with the Huskies. You brought up Dan Mullen. Well, we're talking Mississippi State and Florida, 2 stops that he's made in his past. We get the Florida Gators, not a good win-loss record, but now being asked to lay, 9.5 hosting Mississippi State. Granted, it's in the swamp. 50 being the total. This Florida team is one, I thought might be a good bet, but it seems like the odds makers, the betting market is onto it. They're better than their record. I don't know if you're getting any type of bargain here laying 9.5, Matt.
But the thing that's interesting about this game is the report that came out from USA Today that Napier won't make it to Sunday if they lose this game. I don't think they're going to lose the game, but like, that's a little extra pressure to put on these kids. Let's be honest. Not only do they need to win the game, but, now you're playing for your coach's job. Now, it also depends on how much they like Napier. Maybe they don't like Napier. There's a couple of injuries to watch as the week goes along. Florida's got some secondary guys who are injured. And what does Mississippi State want to do? Mississippi State wants to throw the ball. And so I think that's something that they can certainly do here. I do find it interesting that Fluff Bothwell, the running back for Mississippi State, is out for the game. So that's at least one aspect of their offense that's a little weaker. Of course, they do have some decent backups there, but I don't know. This is an extra pressure, Drew, that you have to win this game for your head coach. And if they don't like their head coach, not that I'm saying kids would lay down or not play hard, but if they don't like Napier and they know a loss could get him out of there, there's a small chance that Florida doesn't show up and he's gone. I think they will show up and win this game, but there's a lot of pressure for these kids to play under.
Yeah, no, I get it. He seems like a likable guy, though. I don't know. I was looking for reasons to be on the Gators, but again, it comes down to the number, guys. Can you really trust them to pretty much win by double digits to cash the bet? All right, we'll move to Denton, Texas. North Texas hosting UTSA. So we get a Lone Star State battle here, 3:30 Eastern kick. -4. That's the Mean Green as the home favorite. 67 and a hook being the total. North Texas off to a great start for the season. They ran into USF, but other than that, Mean Green have been on a run here, Matt.
Yeah, and the other thing that's interesting here is heavy thunderstorms possible. There could be some thunderstorms that kind of throw off the rhythm of this game, and it feels like these are two teams that need rhythm on their offense. UTSA wants to run the ball with Henry. North Texas wants to throw the ball and can run the ball. North Texas has 3 wide receivers who are questionable right now on the participation report. Now, granted, that's a deep position for North Texas, but I would lean towards UTSA in this situation. I certainly think they have the better defense. Neither of them really have good defenses, but I think UTSA's defense is slightly better in this situation. I also trust their ground game, but once again, we've talked about it in the past, and I may make too much of this, but thunderstorms ruin momentum. And thunderstorms ruin anything that kind of, goes along with the game flow. You might see a team play really well in the first half. Thunderstorms come along, and then sitting all that time, they don't have anything in the second half. So that makes this an interesting handicap, because for those who are not familiar, you can't go on the field again until 30 minutes after the last lightning strike. So if there's, if you're sitting in there and you're about ready to go out there, and then there's another lightning strike, and then there's another 30 minutes and everything. And if you're the road team, you're probably sitting in less good conditions in the locker room. So that kind of makes the handicap here really interesting, because heavy thunderstorms means you could have, some decent delays here. I lean to UTSA, but I think the handicap is potentially watch this game live and kind of get a sense as to how the teams look and when the storms might be coming for this one.
Matt, we'll head to the Plains up next. 7:45 Eastern, 6:45 local start. It is Auburn hosting Missouri. Talk about not getting any bargains here, Matt. We get Missouri -1 and a hook as the road favorite, 43 and a hook being the total. Man, it's been a rough year, wins and losses for Auburn, but you're only catching 1.5 here with the Tigers.
Yeah, and first road game of the season for Missouri.
Yeah.
How about that? They've played, 6 straight games at home? Or 5 straight games at home, whatever it was. Played a bunch of games, and then they had a bye week, and then the Alabama game. So, here's my question for these two teams, Drew. Missouri coming off of the loss at home to Alabama. Auburn coming off of the officiating loss to Georgia at home. Who's less hungover for this game? Now, my lean would usually be to the home team here in this situation, but the way Auburn lost last week, and then you could talk about the Damari Alston dismissal, I feel like that's going to play a factor here. I would lean to Auburn here, considering it's Missouri's first road game, but I hate trying to figure out which of these teams will be less hungover after great opportunities at home that they squandered away.
Well, Matt, I spent about 20 minutes trying to read about it, and all I could find was he didn't live up to what the football team asked of him, and he was dismissed. I didn't actually find a reason why he was dismissed off the team. Do you know why?
No, nobody really has said anything. It's been very generic.
Yeah.
And people are not happy with the coach, and naturally you're not happy with the coach because I think a lot of people first off side with the players in this situation until we eventually find out why and the reasons why he's no longer on the team. But if the players are not happy with the coach, that's another reason to be concerned about Auburn because, if you kick off a former captain, and, these players really looked up to Alston, and so now they're going to be without him. Maybe that kind of throws something into this game as well.
Sure, that is definitely a wrench into the handicap. I have a question for you because I've been texting with friends, with the Auburn program, and Hugh Freeze. Look, that's been it's definitely 2, if not 3 games here where the referees have not gone on Auburn's side here, and it's cost them games. I could sound biased as an Auburn alum, but really just watching the game, the cookie has not crumbled Auburn's way in terms of SEC officiating in the calls. I've heard some friends say, it's something to do with Hugh Freeze, and there's a lot of people that don't like him. Do you think there's anything to that? I know that you've covered Hugh Freeze in the past. Is there anything there?
I don't think so. I think it's Georgia and Alabama get a lot of the calls. I think that this is one of those things where the flagship programs of these conferences just get more calls. That's all there is to it. I don't think it's anything to do with the coach. I don't think he's any more of a jerk to the officials than anybody else is. I think all coaches can be that way. So I think it's more Georgia is Georgia. They get a lot of calls.
Makes sense, Matt. As we got Arizona and Houston up next. Good matchup here. Competitive price tag, early kick, 11 a.m. local time. -1. That is Arizona as the road favorite. 46 being the total in Houston, Texas.
I like Houston in this game. I wonder how much of a hangover Arizona has after the overtime loss to BYU. I like Houston's defense. I think Houston's defense is good. Obviously they've had some quarterback problems there, but they're feeling good after the win at Oklahoma State. Scattered thunderstorms for this game. So once again, now we're kind of dealing with flow issues potentially for this game. But I lean to Houston. I think Houston is the team that is the side that I would play in this one.
We got a couple games left here, guys. This is segment number 2. Every game on the board. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, every game on the board. Also on YouTube and Twitter at MidMajor Matt, at Drew Martin Bets. Talking every single game on the college football FBS slate. Thanks for joining us. Feel free to comment below, guys. Any questions, fire away. What your bets are, all is welcome. We're doing a quick segment here, Matt. At ESPN Richmond, you got an interview. Alyssa Lang, you said, is coming on?
We're taping an interview a little bit later with Heather Dinich of ESPN.
Okay.
She's really good, and certainly with UVA being in the mix for the playoffs, we got to talk about that. And who knows, maybe JMU's in the mix if they can overcome some teams in the G5.
Have you looked at the Virginia-Washington State game yet, Matt?
I like Virginia off the bye week. I think Washington State, second straight road game. I don't know how much they gave a great effort against Ole Miss. I don't know if they're going to do the same in this one. Kind of like Virginia a little bit in this situation. We could see some points here. I don't trust UVA's defense. It could be an over.
Do you know if I was trying to look it up? I couldn't find it. Did Washington State stay on the East Coast going from Oxford to Charlottesville, or did they go back?
That's a good question. I do not know. I would have to look that up and see if they have. It would make sense to stay on the East Coast. And maybe I think a lot of teams go to the Greenbrier in West Virginia in that situation. Like we've seen NFL teams practice at the Greenbrier for the week when they've had the West Coast teams coming east. But I can try and look and see as we sit here, but I have not read anything about that. It would make sense, though, for them.
Yeah, it would. And I do that in my handicapping a lot when it's like interesting travel spots. But something to come along with it, if you guys are doing it out there, is college football teams are pretty tight-lipped on what they're doing with their travel plans. Now, they'll put it on social media when it happens, but they don't really put it out there in what their plans are. So it was something I had trouble finding. But yeah, let's get back to the games. TCU hosting Baylor, a good one here in the Big 12. It is the Horned Frogs -3. There is 2.5 out there as the home favorite, 65 being the total.
I mean, this one should see a lot of points. Last year was 37-34. You've got two of the best quarterbacks in the country in Sawyer Robertson, who has 19 touchdown passes, and Hoover, who has 18 touchdown passes. I don't think there's going to be much resistance from either defense. I know Jeff Nadeau had this as his play for the last segment as an over. I would agree with that. I mean, I don't know. Baylor coming off the bye week, I think we might see, heck, if you want to, and if you're in a place where you can bet player props, I'd probably look at either guy's touchdown passes over. It's probably going to be 2.5, but both of them are certainly capable of throwing 3 touchdowns in this game.
Yeah, the over guy's 65 there, but obviously correlated with the touchdowns like Matt is talking about. We got Southern Miss and UL Lafayette up next. It is Southern Miss -3 and a hook pretty much across the board as the favorite, 53.5 being the total in Lafayette, Louisiana, Matt.
So I was at the JMU game last week and watched Louisiana play. I like this Lunch Winfield, who is the second or third quarterback they've turned to this year. He's a very mobile quarterback. He's got a very good arm. So I like what he did. Their defense kept them in the game against JMU, if not for a couple of turnovers and some things. I mean, I don't think Louisiana was going to Harrisonburg and winning that game, but I was pretty impressed with ULL. Obviously, when we talk about Southern Miss, we're talking about the Marshall All-Stars. Plus whoever Southern Miss had in their roster still, because all the players followed Charles Huff from Marshall to Southern Miss. I don't know if this is just because I saw them, but I would almost take Louisiana plus the points here. I really like their quarterback, and I think that this is a team that's finally getting to play a home game after a couple on the road. I think I lean to them as the home dog in this situation.
Matt, we got less game for the segment here. Early kick in Tulane, I guess in the Big Easy, New Orleans, Louisiana. It is Tulane -9.5 as the home favorite, 44 and a hook being the total. This number did open 11. Now it's down to 9.5. So Army taking some money. What are you thinking in the Big Easy early on Saturday?
So, you know how it usually goes. You take the armed forces as an underdog. You don't take them usually as a favorite because it's hard for them to cover these large numbers when they're a favorite. I mean, look, the only thing that's complicating things here is the fact that this is a revenge game. Although it's funny because Tulane's like, this is not a revenge game. This was the AAC championship game last year, and Army won 35-14. So, like, Army was the AAC champions, and so you can't help but think that Tulane is going to want revenge in this situation. They don't have the customary week, extra time. I mean, I guess they technically have a little bit of extra time to prepare for Army, but this is not a great Army offense. It's not a great Army defense. I would slightly lean to Army in this situation. I think they're a better underdog than they are a favorite, but I would completely understand if Tulane wants to run the score up and kind of, get revenge after last year's loss in the championship game.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's almost a little bit tricky because it is revenge, but at the same time, one of the aspects to betting the military academies when they're an underdog is the team they're playing against usually doesn't run the score up against the military academy. But what you're saying might kind of overdo that. But good point there, Matt. Before we get to best bets, we're talking with Mid-Major Matt at Mid-Major Matt on Twitter, ESPN Richmond. And he covers Old Dominion and James Madison very closely. That's a big game here. It's not as part of our rotation, but I'll throw it over to you. I know you cover both of these two teams, a big game, -1.5. That's JMU as the home favorite, 48 being the total, Matt.
So first off, throw out what happened last week to ODU. I mean, that was a bad coaching job by Ricky Ronnie, I think, in terms of getting his team focused. I mean, ODU was getting a lot of love in the state, a lot of love across the country for how they played so far. And they knew that the Royal Rivalry, which is what the name of the game is, on Saturday was going to be huge for the division. I mean, I think if JMU wins, they essentially clinch the Eastern Division because I don't trust anybody else in that division. I think ODU is the second best team, and they would have the tiebreaker over them. That said, I thought it was interesting when Jeff last in your segment yesterday said that he doesn't think JMU's defense is as good as their numbers. They are. I mean, I get that they haven't played anybody other than Louisville, but there's still something to being able to shut down your opponents that you've played. And they've seen a lot of mobile quarterbacks, and Colton Joseph is probably better than all of those mobile quarterbacks. But I trust this defense. To me, this bet's easy. If you like ODU in this game, you're taking the over. ODU's not winning a 24-14 game. If you like JMU in this game, you're taking the under. JMU's offense is like the Eagles' offense, as I wear my Eagles sweatshirt. JMU has these drives where they move right down the field, they score easy touchdowns, and everything looks great. And then there's like 3 or 4 drives in a row where they can't run, they can't complete passes, and they basically say, all right, defense, save us. And so far this season, the defense has. I think JMU wins this game. I said the score was 24-20. I think this is a lower scoring game. I think ODU is winning at some point, so maybe live bet JMU if ODU's winning. But I trust Colin Hitchler, who's a tremendous defensive coordinator, for JMU to figure out a scheme that kind of takes care of the ODU offense that wants to spread you out and then basically try and find matchups to take advantage of. The problem is JMU's corners are really good this season, so you can almost leave them out on an island and commit extra resources to the middle and Colton Joseph, who wants to run the ball.
Leave them on an island. Matt Joseph's here. Matt, what do we got for best bets, man?
I'm going to go with, much like Jeff, I'm going with one outside my set because I don't love anything in my set. And I told you last week what my bet was going to be. I'm taking over 38.5 points for Toledo. I said if Toledo lost to Bowling Green, they're hosting Kent State, and they'll take all their frustrations out on Kent State. Now, the weather is going to be an issue here, so that's a little disappointing. But I just think Toledo has this opportunity to bounce back. We saw it earlier in the season when Toledo played Akron. They were coming off a loss. They beat up on Akron. They scored a lot of points. Kent State's terrible defensively. They're getting a little bit better offensively, but I just think Toledo's going to name their score here. So give me Toledo over 38.5 points as my best bet.
It is 38.5 pretty much across the board right now. Not every sports book out with it, but the ones that I'm seeing that are 5 or 6 of them, 38 and a hook. Toledo, the Rockets over on the team total. Great stuff as always, Matt. Jam-packed information. Anything else you want to throw out before we shut this down?
Nope. Just make sure to check the weather forecast as you get closer to your games. Check the participation reports. All that stuff's really important.
All right, guys, that does it for segment number 2. Matt Josephs, give him a follow at Mid-Major Matt. Check him out, ESPN Richmond. We'll take a short break and be right back with Robbie Vino breaking down the rest of the college football card, every game on the board.